Morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This morning's learning is sponsored by Hetty Pizer, memory of your mother-in-law, Anna Pizer, Chanaleah Bas Rav Kalman. Thank you very much to Hetty, and Neshama should have an aliyah. Okay, we will begin with chapter 28, verse 17. And the topic that we'll discuss here in the pasuk is the breastplate of the Kohen Gadol and the Choshen, and it was a fascinating thing. There were 12 stones on the Kohen Gadol's breastplate, and each of these stones had on it one of the names of the tribes of Israel. There's an interesting Kli Yakar just on various aspects of symbolism of this, so we'll just see this. We'll begin with the Kli Yakar on Pasuk Yud Zayin. You'll assemble 4 rows of stones. Shlosha avanim tovos, and each of the 4 rows has 3 fine stones on it. Ki ein bezdin pachos mishlosha. The choshen mishpat is what it's called, the breastplate of justice. So there's something about this breastplate that's supposed to represent the enforcement of justice in the world and the Jewish people. So each row has 3 stones. Because each of the rows represents a Beis Din, or rabbinic tribunal, and that normally has 3 people. View mashirim kizoar havanim, and the goal is that the rabbis of the Beis Din should give off a glow like the glow of these stones, meaning ki avnei nezer hema shenirim tocham kibaram. There, you can see the inside of the stone looks like the outside. In other words, there's a whatever you call it, a reflection, a glow, whatever it is coming from the stone. So this represents tocho kabaro, that people's internal should be like external. Many people present themselves as being very pious and fine, etc., and they've got all different kinds of thoughts going on in their head. So the stones are supposed to represent the inside and outer should be the same. The Akeda writes that actually don't let yourself get fooled. Not all of these 12 stones were so precious. Some of them were very expensive, and some of them came cheap. Lirmos sheyeladayin shavet mishpat shel pruta kimeya mana, and that's to allude to something that a judge who's involved with a monetary case should view a case for small money as important as a case for a lot of money. It's a famous idea. The names of the tribes were etched onto the stones. Lirmos, shlo yisa pnei ish kakaton kagadol yishvaun, kilu ein kan yisron legadol shebeshvatim alakatan shebahem rakatolda tluya b'shanim. It's a very interesting thing. What was the order of the tribes listed on the stones? So the Kli Yakar says, the order of the tribes was in the age order of their birth. You know what that shows you? That shows you that that's the only distinguishing factor as long as we're concerned from a judicial perspective. You could have done it differently. You could have done it the most prominent to the least prominent. Yehuda kings come from Yehuda. The Kohanim come from Levi, and so on and so forth. It doesn't do it that way. It does them in age order to show that when people come before a Beis Din, they're equal. They're absolutely equal. V'zula zeh kol shaven. And other than this, the fact that they were born at different points of time, they're completely equal. It's a very appropriate allusion to think about. There's another point here, the idea of everyone being equal. Not only does it mean that everyone should be equal in the eyes of the judge, the more prominent, the less prominent should be equal. It's also a reminder that the judge shouldn't see himself as being better than everybody else. Because we have various quotes from the Talmud that talk about the great perils of a judge thinking he's better than other people. Pasuk says that the humble should be guided in justice, meaning that a person who's judging has to be a person of unique humility. You can look elsewhere to understand why that's important. There's a famous medrash, I believe we probably saw it at the time, when Moshe Rabbeinu was reluctant about taking the position of leadership, and he implied, what about Aaron HaKohen? So God said, Aaron will see you and he'll be happy in his heart. Medrash says, in the merit of Aaron's being happy for Moshe's prominence, Aaron will merit to wear the Choshen Mishpat, this breastplate with the stones on his heart. Why is that significant? So the truth is, most of the time you hear that, you say, yeah, it means he's going to be the Kohen Gadol. Kli Yakar says, no, we're not just talking about him being the Kohen Gadol. We're talking specifically about that garment. Ki b'schus shemerov anava shabo lo niskane b'sraras Moshe achiv hakatan mimenu betolda sacha l'choshen mishpat hatzliya b'midas v'anav. The Kli Yakar says it's deeper than just the fact that Aaron becomes the Kohen Gadol. Aaron will wear this garment that's all about humility, because Aaron demonstrated remarkable humility in the fact that he wasn't disturbed that his younger brother took a more prominent position than he, and therefore he wears the Choshen Mishpat. The fact that these lovely stones are in age order of the tribes of Israel brings out humility. It's measure for measure. Aaron HaKohen conducted himself with humility, so he merits to wear this garment that represents humility. So we have ideas here about representations in terms of the role of Beis Din and how they have to conduct themselves, and also ideas about the equality of every member of the Jewish people and the fact that the judge has to certainly conduct himself with much humility. Let's go on to chapter 28, verse 30. Chapter 28, verse 30. Now, this Choshen Mishpat, this breastplate that represents justice, V'nosato Choshen Mishpat es ha'urim v'satumim, quite likely the most mystical aspect of the Kohen Gadol's dress, that you should place in the Choshen Mishpat, the Urim v'Tumim. There was this parchment, the name of God was written on it, and it was slipped inside of the breastplate. And through this, the Kohen Gadol, not just Aaron HaKohen, subsequent Kohen Gadol throughout the generations, who would wear the breastplate, were able to get unique clarity from heaven regarding questions. Vayu aleva Aaron, the Urim v'Tumim should be over Aaron's heart, v'ol of Hashem, when he comes before God. V'nasa Aaron es mishpat b'nei Yisrael al libo. Aaron will bear the justice of the Jewish people on his heart, of Hashem tamid, always when he comes before God. Okay, I have different things I want to talk about on this pasuk, but let's begin with the Ramban. There's a Ramban in Pasuk Lamed, a very lengthy Ramban. I want to begin from around the halfway point of the Ramban. In my layout, it's a new paragraph beginning with the word V'ha'inyan. It's maybe around 60% of the way through the Ramban. V'ha'inyan hu, the idea is, K'ayu Shemos Kedoshim, there were holy names of God, Mikocham Ya'iru Ha'osios, if the Kohen Gadol were to pose a question to God while wearing the Urim v'Tumim, the Choshen Mishpat, the Urim v'Tumim, so in the force and power of these holy names, letters from the stones on the breastplate would light up for the Kohen Gadol, and that would give him his answer, like the letters would spell out the answer. For example, the question was posed, we have this at the beginning of Shoftim, the Jewish people under Yoshua's leadership, the Jewish people, wanted to know who should lead the fight, which tribe should lead the fight. That was a question, they didn't know the answer. So they had the Kohen Gadol wear the Urim v'Tumim, and then they posed the question. At that moment, Haya Kohen Mechavin b'Shemos, Shema Urim, Ve'iru le'enav Osios Yehuda. So the Kohen Gadol at that moment would think about the holy names inside of the garment or of the item that he was wearing. And the Ramban says that's what we mean as the Urim, the sources of light. We talk about the Urim v'Tumim. And when he had that in mind, this very important question was raised, the letters on the tribe of Yehuda, that spelled out Yehuda, lit up for him. The Yud Milevi, the Ayin Mishimon, the Lamed Milevi, Veheme Avram Akasav Shama Das Rabosein. And so it spelled out Yehuda Ya'aleh. Yehuda will go up, meaning Yehuda will lead the charge. So Yehuda, I can figure out how it spells out Yehuda. That's clear enough. But because there's a stone that says Yehuda on it. But where do you get Ya'aleh from? So Ramban says, well, there's a Yud in the name Levi, there's an Ayin in the name Shimon, There's a lamed in the name Levi. There's also an idea that across the bottom, it was written Avram Yitzchak Yaakov. So the hay from Avram lit up. One possibility. Oh, she'ira pamacheres neged einav hey mihuda. See, here's the problem. Where do you you only have so many letters. I keep on thinking of Wheel of Fortune, Lahavdil Alfei Avdalos. You only have so many letters. So who has a hey in the name? I think it's just Yehuda. So if we want to spell out Yehuda, so the hey is spoken for. Yehuda's hey is spoken for. So if it's going to say Yala, Yehuda will go up. So there's a hey in Yala. So one possibility, says the Ramban, is it said Avram Yitzchak Yaakov along the bottom, so Avram lit up the hay from Avram. Or you double dipped. You double dipped, and after Yehuda lit up, it kind of went dark again, and then when it was time for the Ya'aleh, the hay lit up from Ya'aleh, from Yehuda. This is a fascinating thing. There's a lot of discussion about this. Says the Ramban, the letters lit up, but the order in which they were supposed to be spelling wasn't clear. Kimina osios asher sidru mehem Yehuda Ya'aleh hayefshir leheosos mehem hoy hodo leha o yihi al Yehuda. The Tevos Acheros Rabbos Mod. You could spell all kinds of words with the letters that make out Yehuda Ya'aleh. Aval hayusam shemos hakodesh acherim nikroim tumim. Kochem yeleva koin tamim b'dias inin ha'osio she'iru le'enav. So the Ramban says, wasn't only that the Kohen Gadol was blessed that certain letters would light up from the power of God's names, Urim, lights, but the Kohen Gadol was also given clarity to understand how to read the letters. And that also came from the sanctity of the names within the Urim V'Tumim. And Tam means pure or perfect, that his heart was given clarity. There were different names of God. There's all these holy names of God. So there were certain names that were letter names that we're supposed to think of, and certain names that were sort of like, now I know what the letters are, now I have to know how to piece it all together. Those were other names they would think of. And as the letters are still lit up in front of him, then it becomes clear to him how to spell them. This is a level that we would call divine inspiration. It's a step below prophecy. It's something in between prophecy and an idea of just a voice coming out. The Efsher. Now, how did they know what names to put in the Urim V'Tumim? So Ramban says it could very well be that God conveyed to Moshe what names to put in the Urim V'Tumim, and then it just was conveyed down as a tradition from generation to generation. But this is just an interesting picture as how the Urim V'Tumim worked according to Ramban, and we also saw the Kli Yakar's description of some of the symbolism of the Choshen Mishpat of the breastplate.